It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting if you email me directly at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. We have a returning guest. I believe it's at least his third time. Matthew Ricker, who's back here. He co-wrote a book with Tom Grant about the Kurt Cobain case, and he was like a dog with a bone now. He will not give up on this case. How many years has it been? Forever. Right, Matthew Ricker, are you there?
I am. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, well, first of all, before we get into who is Matthew Ricker, how many years have you been working on this?
Oh, gee. Well, it's hard to say because, probably right out of college, even in the late 90s. But, I've dropped it for many years at a time, too. Like I've gone several years without doing anything on this subject, and just dropped it entirely. I've tried to walk away, but it almost kind of keeps following me. But I've hung up the cleats on this story several times. So I can't say I've been working on it continuously for over 20 years. That's not quite true. But I picked it up and dropped it, picked it up and dropped it. It never seems to really go anywhere. I'd love to drop it for good. I'd love nothing better. But it seems to keep following me.
Yeah, like that scene from The Godfather with Pacino. I think they keep pulling me back in.
Yeah, so very true.
I got a couple of those myself, man. But remind the audience, or tell them about yourself. Who is Matthew Ricker?
Well, I'm just a part-time writer, and I'm no one special. And I write about all kinds of different subjects. And one of the subjects I started writing about was many years ago was the death of Kurt Cobain. Now, I have never been a Nirvana fan. I'm actually not even an alternative music fan at all. My interest in the story was simply the case. Was not I was not like a big Cobain follower, a big music fan, not at all. That I just found the case fascinating and many years ago, and I always had a little bit of a hand of it, but I dropped it for a while, and then around 2011, I believe, Tom Grant contacted me out of the blue and said I hadn't done anything in years on the Cobain case, and he contacted me out of the blue and asked me if I'd want to write a book with him, and I was very interested, and I said sure. A lot had been written about, enough had been written about the case, but I always thought it was not done very well. And I thought, I'd like to actually write about this and try to do it right. Okay. And Tom and I talked about it. And I said this in my last appearance on the show, talked endlessly about it, talked about doing it, but never seemed to actually get anything done. It never seemed to go anywhere. It was just kind of like a time-wasting thing. And then Tom wanted to say, I had an idea or framework for a book and an outline. I presented to him, and he said, "No, Tom's not a writer at all, but he thinks he is." And he wrote this. He said, "No, we're going to write 3 books instead, and we're going to self-publish them." And I thought, this seems like a complete waste of time. Why would success in any endeavor has to have a model, and this didn't seem to be a very good model. Publishing, 3 books by oneself to try to achieve, the reopening of a case just seems to me to be a fruitless enterprise. And I said, this makes no sense. And he says, no, please help me with this. And, after we're done, I promise you can take your idea from the book. You can have complete control over it. You have my word. And, it'll be our baby and you can do it. Just help me with these 3 books. This little project that I have, he called it Murder Lake Washington. And then you can do whatever you want. And when you do that, you'll have free reign. You can make all the writing choices. You can make all the decisions and it'll be our baby. And I said, okay. So I helped him with these 3 books. I thought they were terrible. Murder Lake Washington series and pointless. And and then Ben Statler reached out, and I was doing some occasional research on it, and I was coming up with some interesting material. But the thing is, I kept I kept asking obvious questions, and it occurred to me that Tom Grant had never answered them. Now, for example, never asked them, I should say. So, like really obvious things, like, okay, did you contact the medical examiner, the chief medical examiner in the city of Seattle about this case? Well, no. Well, why not? Did you contact the police who were on the police officer who entered the greenhouse and discovered the body? Well, no. Well, why not? Do you know what I mean? Like he didn't do really obvious things. The fireman who broke the glass and opened the door to the greenhouse and entered. Tom never contacted this guy. Now, he told me he was up there in April of '94 investigating this case, but I couldn't figure out what he did. And I found the fireman, for example, who entered the greenhouse for the first time. It wasn't even that difficult. 20 years plus years later, I call him and I ask him, and I said, this was in the police reports, that there was a stool wedged against the door. And I said, okay, is there I called this fireman. I said, hey, when you went to that greenhouse, was there a stool wedged against the door? And he was like, what? No, there was no stool wedged against the door. So no one's ever asked me this question before. It's 20 years afterwards. No one's asked you this question. And I just remember thinking, like, Tom, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you ask that question? Like, what's going on? And like these super obvious things. And so I just didn't know what did you do back in 1994? And now I had been under the impression.
Let me ask you: did he ever give you his final report, like a written report of what he did to justify his payments?
No, I had no idea. And the one of the things, one of the problems I had was I took a trust but verify approach to Tom, which was unwise. And a lot of things, like, for example, he claims to have phone records from 1994, from when Courtney Love was staying at the Peninsula Hotel. And in these phone records, he has, he knows all the people that Courtney Love called during that time that Kurt Cobain was allegedly missing. Okay, great.
So he has Courtney Love's phone records.
I don't know, because he never produced them. So I can never verify that they actually exist. He doesn't let anyone independently verify these things. So he talks about these things as if they exist. Maybe they exist.
Where does he talk about these things? I think I've ever heard just a couple of documentary films. I never really hear him doing any interviews or anything.
Yeah, he talks about them a lot. And,
really?
And then they're in Love and Death, and then they're described in Love and Death, and they're described in the other Who Killed Kurt Cobain by Wallace and Halpern, and other places. And endlessly he talked to me about the phone records, but he would never show them to me. So I have no idea if they actually exist. They might, but they might as well not too. And so there are a lot of things like this. I never really got to see any records. I was told that I would, but I never saw them. I could never independently verify very much. Now, and the thing is also, and you know this, I know, because I know you know Paula Jones. I was under the impression that this man had been hired by President Clinton. By Paula Jones' legal team to investigate President Clinton. Mm-hmm. I believe that. That was in Wallace and Halpern's books. I was at the press conference in Manhattan for Love and Death by Wallace and Halpern. Tom was at that press conference. That's right there in the book. They came to Tom Grant to investigate the president. I actually believed that. You heard it all the time. Tom told me that was true. Turns out it wasn't. He was actually, just a security guard for Paula Jones. And I eventually, did talk to Paula Jones and I talked to her legal team, but to verify that. So, I was just like, what's going on? He was always billing himself. Tom does this thing that I'm not trying to be crude here. I'm actually trying to be specific. He indulges in what I call masturbatory moralism, and I'm not trying to be crude. I'm actually trying to use the right word. He will talk about himself in like, oh God, my honesty. Oh my honesty. I'm so honest. Oh my God, I'm so honest. And then he'll talk about his experience. Oh, I'm such an experienced investigator. I'm so experienced. And They don't talk about his faith. Oh, my faith. Oh, my family. Oh, God, my family. Oh, God, my word. My word is so good. Oh, my word is so strong. Oh, my God. Like, he does this self-congratulation stuff, and it's almost like masturbatory the way he describes himself, his honesty and things like that. He it's like that line from Hamlet, methinks the lady doth protest too much. He talks about himself in this self-congratulatory terms so excessively that it becomes like masturbatory. It's like really weird, and like you can dismiss it at first, but then after a while it's like nails grinding against a chalkboard. It's like I just couldn't stand it anymore. So anyway, I was so about to walk away, like I told you last time, and then Kathleen O'Toole was made the police chief of Seattle, and she's a family friend. And she is she's also like I am, and I come from a big extended family in Boston, and in that family, most everyone goes to Boston College, as Kathleen O'Toole did. So we have she knows my family, and she knows she's even traveled with some of them across Ireland together, and so I said, oh my gosh, I could get this to Kathleen O'Toole. So I stuck around. And when Soaked in Bleach came out, Soaked in Bleach was being done, I helped out. I shared some of my research with Soaked in Bleach. I believe, and Tom got paid, I didn't get paid anything for this, and I was fine with that. Tom got paid north of $50,000 for it. And I shared my research through Tom. Like I would share it with Tom, and then Tom would share it with Ben Statler. And I think that Tom took credit for that research. But he didn't actually do it. It's actually mine. And then
do we know how much Tom got paid by Courtney?
We don't know. Now, one of the things I never saw anything like that, billing or anything like that at all. Right. Now, according to the police reports, Tom was hired by Courtney Love's attorneys, but Tom tells this story, but he was actually that Courtney actually hired him out of the Yellow Pages, and that's not a very believable story because. Well, I'll get to that in a minute.
I'll tell you something else real quick because Courtney is so litigious,
right?
And she's so aggressive, obnoxiously aggressive, just in personal dealings. Like she's not afraid to come confront people. She could make a good case of saying, hey, sir, I hired you to do this private investigation. That's my work product that you're running around talking about here. We must have a retainer agreement that says I can't talk about this and you can't talk about this, and you're making $50,000. I want that money right now. Has that ever happened?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. So there's a lot about this we don't know. Like Tom asserts integrity. Very like in that word masturbatory, in this kind of lofty way, self-indulgent way. Oh, my integrity. Oh, my integrity. Integrity comes from the Latin word meaning the whole. Tom never lets you see the whole. I certainly never saw it. And there's just a lot of we don't know. Now,
and once again, he came to you to write the book because he had read some articles you had written about Kurt Cobain.
Yeah, and we might have had a conversation or two on the phone, and that's why he contacted me. Or so he claims. The thing is, I wrote the book, but he sabotaged the book deal. Now, the book deal was with a group called Wild Brew Press. Now, he has claimed repeatedly that I had full, you have my word, you have full power over arranging a book deal. Now, I couldn't get a book deal with a publisher. Soaked in Bleach bombed. And there were other, the market on Cobain and the death of Cobain was oversaturated. No publisher was interested. I published it on Amazon, self-published on Amazon, a Kindle. At that time, and when was this? 2017. People were self-publishing on Amazon and then trying to get a publisher. And that was I don't think people do that anymore, but at the time that seemed to be working. And was getting really good reviews. People really loved it. And I tried my best to get a publisher, and I couldn't get anyone interested. And then I was very close to giving up and walking away for a lot of reasons. Tom was driving me crazy. And I began to really, really know on a gut level that I'd been conned, that I'd been had. And it's just, no one wants to admit getting played, getting conned. And the feeling got stronger and stronger. And I was hoping I could, maybe I can rescue the Kindle. Maybe I can just get it published, and I can make some adjustments in the text if something goes wrong. I put so much work into it. It's very hard to walk away when you put a bunch of work into something. But I thought about it all the time. I'm getting conned. Something's not right here. And at any rate, Tom and I get into a big fight. We're not speaking. He wants money. He's broke. He's destitute.
He wants money from you?
Yeah, he wants money from me. Now, he was always talking about to me.
Let me ask you a question, too, because after our last interview, I was contacted by a few people who came away with the impression that you have some kind of a grudge. Well, what is your motivation for this? Do you feel like you have a grudge against Tom Grant?
Well, grudge is not the word I use. I certainly believe I was taken advantage of. And I do believe I was conned. And I do believe I was used by Tom. No question about it. Now, so if you want to call that a grudge, I suppose you can call that a grunge.
Since we're talking about grunge.
But at the same time, I really did walk away. Yeah. And now, one of the reasons he was always trying to telling me, many times he talked about trying to get more money out of Ben Statler for a sequel to Soak and Bleach. He wanted to get a lot more money out of him. He was very open about trying to extort money from him, and $100,000 he wanted from him. He really felt like Ben ripped him off, and I was like, oh boy, is he going to do this to me someday? Mm-hmm. And then I self-published a book on Amazon, and he's like, you're stealing all this money from me. I'm like, it takes a while for that money to come in, and it comes in such tiny amounts. And he starts selling the book on his own through his website, which was getting lots of hits at that time because of Soaked in Bleach. So he starts selling the book himself, the first draft of the book. He starts selling it in paperback, or I don't even know, and as a PDF. So he's selling the book, and in the meantime, I'm trying to publish the book and trying to get it to the hands of the Seattle police chief, who I had, a very clear bridge to. Now,
Norm Stampler?
No, Kathleen O'Toole.
Okay.
Now,
right, the one who went to Ireland, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, I was very close to walking away from the book. But I got interviewed by a guy, Ron Chapesiak, on the show Crime Beat. He interviews me. He loves the book. He suggests Wild Blue Press. I said, okay, yeah, sure. All right, he tells me to send a letter to them, and I said, okay. I took his advice. I sent the letter. I don't hear anything back. He checks back to me. He says, what did Wild Blue Press say? I said, nothing. And he says, I'll contact them for you. So he contacts them for me, and I get an offer to publish the book. Now, there's no money. Wild Blue Press doesn't even have an office. I mean, it's fine. They're a true crime publisher. They're tiny. They have some sort of skeleton crews scattered around the country, but there's no office. There's no phone. It was all by email. Yeah. I didn't talk to anyone. Like, I never had a live phone conversation with anyone. It was weird. Now, here's where I was very naive. So I posted it on Facebook. I said, I got a publishing deal for the book, and I'm, going to once it gets published, I'm going to submit this to the Seattle police chief, and we'll see what happens. I mean, there was no promise that they would do anything. They can't make a promise like that. And, but they, they were willing to take a look at it now, which is a lot. And Tom, contacts Wild Blue Press, threatens to sue them. Okay. I mean, the book was co-authored. It was written in his voice. There was, there was no advance. It was going to be like 6 months to a year before any royalties came in. I just wanted to get the book off my back, get it to the Seattle police. Let's see what happens. And I didn't think it would actually make any money. Well, of course, if the Seattle police, acted on it, then I suppose it would have made money someday, but it would have been way down the road. Now, Tom accused me of trying to rip him off and steal him. But he also accused me of getting a book deal. He was mad because I got a book deal with no advance. He wanted a big publisher like Simon Schuster and a big payday like he got from, he got a $50,000 payment up front for Soaked in Bleach. He wanted something like that from the book. Well, I couldn't deliver that. But I was okay with that. I mean, I wasn't going to make any money overnight either. But I was all right with that. Well, he wasn't. And he accused me of trying to steal from him. It was really quite desperate. I think what he wanted was control. I think that was the real thing. I think he was just hiding behind, forget about the whole idea of giving your word. You have my word. Oh God, my word. He broke his word. He was very happy to do that. And he sabotaged the book deal. And I just walked away. I tried to fix it. Okay, Tom, we'll get you a separate contract. You can sign it. But then he refused to sign it. And then he sent me a $1,500 PayPal request and said, I want $1,500 to let this go forward.
Small unmarked bills.
I was like, okay. I mean, you've been selling this book yourself, and I didn't want any of that money. I said, you're fine. Yeah. You've been selling this book. Have it. Keep all that money. Who cares? I just wanted it to not fail and have it go forward. That money could have been it when it started to come in. There was plenty of time to do an accounting.
Well, let's not get too sidetracked on the accounting of the books, right? Because off the air, you were telling me that you've located and interviewed a new witness.
Right.
What do you got there?
Well, okay. So now Eric Blanc, and I know you follow him a bit.
Right.
He contacts me in 2019, and he contacts Tom too. Now I had unpublished the Kindle book. I walked away from it. I pulled it offline. I said, I'm done. I walk away. Fatigue. I can't do it anymore. Now he contacts me and contacts Tom. Tom sends him some.
Eric Blanc, it's called?
Yeah, Eric Blanc is the French film director.
French. Okay, he's a film director in France.
Yeah, he contacts Tom Grant. Tom Grant makes some very aggressive financial demands on Eric Blanc. Then Eric Blanc contacts me. I don't ask him for a dime. And I'm like, yeah, I'll help you any way I can. What do you need to know? So I gave him some advice. I help him. He tells me, all right, I've got some witnesses for the night Kurt Cobain was killed. And I said, okay, great. Let's hear it. And he's talking to these people online. And I was more like allowed to, observe what Eric was doing, which was pretty good. Which is a pretty good investigation. Like he would interview people, and I was just kind of on the periphery observing. Like I wouldn't really engage much, but and he was doing a really good job, and he found two witnesses, and this is and then one of those witnesses turned out to be this guy Joe Burns, who's now more public, and his girlfriend, who is much more private these days.
Okay, let's start with that. Joe Burns and his girlfriend. What is their connection to Cobain? Were they roommates, drug dealers?
Joe Burns was a friend with Kurt Cobain. He was in a couple of local grunge bands in Seattle. They were pals.
Okay.
And they were in the same social circle. And so he's there that night. And Tom and I had, my view of how the crime happened was already greatly diverged from Tom's anyway. When I was dealing with Tom, I was forming a different opinion of how things went down. But he says that, he was there that night. And the funny thing is...
wait, who says they were there that night? Joe Burns says he was there that night?
Says that Tom Grant was there that night. Now, the night Kurt Cobain was killed. Now,
killed or killed himself? Describe what Joe Burns says happened that night.
Joe Burns says that his allegation and his girlfriend's allegation is his ex-girlfriend's allegation is that Kurt Cobain's friend Dylan Carlson and a couple of guys, I'm not sure, it's not quite clear who they are, the other guys, show up at the house that night. They're all hanging out, and they apprehend Kurt Cobain. There's a bit of a scuffle, and they inject Kurt Cobain with heroin, and then they bring him up to the greenhouse, and then they finish the job and they shoot him up there. And it happens very quickly and very fast, and no one really is sure how to process it. I'm giving you a simplified version of him for the sake of time.
No, we got plenty of time. Actually, we got at least another half hour. But did anybody come to Kurt's defense? Hey, this is my friend here, me and my girlfriend. Let's help him out.
No one really came to his defense. It all happened very quickly, and there was a lot of questions I still have about this night too. Don't get me wrong. I don't have like a full picture either, and now. Eric Blanc is saying at this time, and I'm only getting, and this is, I guess, back in 2020 during the shelter in place. I'm not getting a full picture at this time either, but Eric Blanc is saying that Tom Grant is there. Believe it or not, I'm actually defending Tom Grant at this point. And I'm saying I find this hard to buy that Tom was there that night. And I did. I don't think of Tom as a killer or someone who would be complicit in a murder. I mean, whatever Tom's flaws, I find those, I still find that hard to buy. So, at any rate, this year, but at any rate, we talk for a while, and then it kind of goes nowhere. And Eric makes his own videos, and he posts them online. I didn't know about this, and Eric didn't tell me he was doing this. And he said on his videos, and I get along with Eric, don't get me wrong, but that he had my participation in the videos, but actually he did not. Those initial videos, I didn't even know about them. And so Tom came at me once on some like Facebook group and started really freaking out on me. And I didn't know what was going on. And then I realized like, oh boy, like I found out about the Eric Blanc videos and that Eric Blanc was posting them. And Tom knew more than I did at this time. And I thought, oh boy, he sounds really frightened of this. There must be something to it now. So I'm thinking, geez, maybe there's something to this. So nothing goes up anywhere for a while. And then this year I got connected with a private investigator who's on TV a lot named Jason Jensen, who does cold case detective. He does cold cases, and he's on Court TV and a few other channels. The
Independent Discovery, all that crap.
Yeah. And I get connected with him, and he's interested in looking into the Cobain case. And I said, all right, well, I'll help you any way I can. He's actually working on it right now, and I think he's doing a great job. I am giving him some help. I'm not getting paid anything for it. Just want to throw that out there. But at any rate, so I said, okay, well, I'm going to go revisit these witnesses again. And because I know one of them, Joe, he had a bad motorcycle accident and things like that. And I wasn't sure if he was so reachable. But he was, and I got, thanks, Eric Blanc helped me, and he connected me with him, and we started to talk this year. And it went pretty well. And he's telling me the story about what happened that night, and I'm open to it. And I said, okay, tell me what happened. Tell me what you saw. And I'm listening to it. And at this time, I'm still thinking, Tom Grant's not involved, because I'm still doubting Eric Blanc's version of it. But then Joe says this to me. He says, well, there were 2 PIs that night taking pictures of us all who were there at the scene. And I said, what? Why did I not hear this years ago, like a few years ago? Like, I didn't catch that detail before. And I said, oh my gosh, was Tom Grant one of those guys? And who was the other guy? So, and of course, I don't have an answer to this.
Wait, taking pictures of the actual murder, or it's just taking pictures before?
There were people there, according to Joe, this is his story, there were people, 2 PIs there, and they were there taking photographs of everyone who was hanging out, as if to say, like, we know you were here.
Right.
So they're there taking photographs of everyone, and they're all getting, kind of nervous and alarmed by this. No one really is sure what's going down. And there are these 2 PIs there, and he's telling, this is the story he tells. And I said, oh, is this what Eric was talking about? Like, I don't know how I missed this before, but I did. And I said, is one of these guys Tom Grant? Well, I don't know. And because I don't know, because I wasn't there. This is just the story I'm hearing. So I said, oh boy, this is big. So I talked to Jason, and I, and a few other people. And we have a loose circle of people who are helping with this. And so, and Joe has some health problems, but it's okay. I said, very last minute decision. I decided to fly out to the West Coast to interview this guy. And I do. And I meet with a cameraman from Canada that I've never met before, and named Nathan Reamer, and we interview him. And it goes well enough. It could have gone better. Joe wasn't feeling well at the time. He was very tired. I actually was very tired. And, I took a long transcontinental flight sitting between two people, and I was exhausted. It was hot as blazes. It was really not easy. We only had a couple
Can I back
days.
up for 1 second here? What was Kurt Cobain's reaction to these two private investigators taking pictures of his private?
I don't think he even saw them. I don't. I think they came and they got. From what I understand, they came and they got Kurt and they apprehended him pretty quickly. And then the PI showed up and started, we're like kind of right behind them and taking photographs of them all. So that's the story. And one of these guys who apprehended him was one of Kurt's friend, Dylan Carlson, according to Joe. Now this is quite a different story than I've heard before. Now, the thing is, Tom had originally claimed that he had met up with Dylan Carlson days later and that they were scouring the city looking for Kurt Cobain. Okay, and that Courtney Love had arranged their meeting. Okay, but now we get a different story. That Tom has always been super defensive of Dylan Carlson.
Oh, really?
Dylan Carlson had no involvement. And I said, okay, well, how do you know that? Like, in other words, he claims to have the ability to vindicate Dylan Carlson. Hey, that's great. If you can vindicate the man, if you can clear his name, then do that. But he doesn't do that. He doesn't actually prove or even try to argue why Dylan Carlson is innocent. Maybe he is innocent. I don't know. But Tom doesn't actually explain this. He asserts it vigorously, but he does not actually argue it. Now, how would he be able to vindicate Dylan if he wasn't already more deeply involved than he is admitted to being? In other words, and a lot of people have put this question to Tom in recent months. Tom, is this allegation true? Were you there that night? Yes or no? It's a simple question. I mean, it would go a long way if he would simply deny it and say, look, I'm sorry, this allegation is out there. It's false. I was not there that night. He's never done that. So people are really wondering, what's going on? I'm wondering what's going on. The more plot, or maybe he could at least say this: I was not there that night, but I can't speak for Dylan. You'll have to ask him where he was. Well, that would be plausible too. He hasn't done that, and that would be persuasive. He hasn't done that. Where was he that night? He just won't say. Now, if you read the book, this is the part that troubles me. The first page of the book I wrote is a story Tom tells about him being hired by some prostitute who was in L.A. who was trying to get out of the prostitution business. And he and this guy, Ben Klugman, were there. And then they go back to their office afterwards, and Courtney Love calls him on the phone after finding him in the Yellow Pages. This is Easter Sunday morning. Now, Joe's story is Kurt Cobain was killed on April 2nd, Saturday. Which would be very quickly after he got out of rehab, which was Friday, April 1st. Okay, so now, if you look at the book, I have to wonder, was the purpose of a book to plant an alibi instead of expose a crime? I mean, if you read the book on Sunday, April 3rd, Tom Grant, Ben Klugman, Courtney Love, and Eric Erlandson are all in Los Angeles on that day. Well, that's great. That sounds like a pretty good alibi to say where they are, if it's true. But there's no way to know that it's true. I mean, I've not seen any evidence that is true other than Tom's story. So I have to wonder, was he using me to create an alibi? Was the purpose of the book to expose a crime and to create an alibi? Did it have this kind of dual purpose? And I didn't really know about one half of it. I have this sneaking suspicion, and I had it, much earlier, that I was really being used to conceal a crime or to create an alibi that I didn't know about. And so I really feel used. So you can call that a grudge if you want, but more deeply, I feel like I was used. And I feel like I was used for some kind of really terrible purpose. That's how it feels to me. I feel that on like a gut level. So we all don't want to. We are all loath to admit getting played. No one wants to say I got conned. People get conned and they get fooled and they don't want to admit it because they get too embarrassed. But I have
so
to
true. I know they'll fight you. Yeah, especially with romance scams, man.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know what's going on. Now, Tom has been in hysterics. He will not answer questions about this. He claims that it's a hoax, that the Joe Burns thing is a hoax, but he is not actually arguing why. Now, the Joe Burns is, he's an eccentric, colorful character. I can't speak, I don't know him that well, but he wears like a lot of like, he's like he comes on an old kind of punk rock skinhead kind of thing, background thing, which I don't know a lot about. And he wears like sometimes like, Nazi symbols and stuff like that. I don't know what the deal is with that. You would have to ask him. Now, one of the Tom's slanders against me recently is he keeps calling me a Nazi, a closet Nazi sympathizer. Well, so if I may, I'd like to just address that very quickly.
Well, go ahead. Okay. You a Nazi there, Mr. Ricker?
I actually come from a very philo-Semitic background. So, for example, like I said, I come from a big Boston College family. One of the people in that family was my uncle Jack, who was he was one of the first 15 men to land at Normandy, and he fought the Nazis. And he landed actually as the 82nd Airborne. He landed behind enemy lines. He's passed away now, but he was actually wounded in combat, and was awarded the Bronze Star, and he, it was always very important to him, to be, even though I come from a Roman Catholic background, I'm Roman Catholic, but it was always important. We always had Jewish friends and Jewish, we were always in those kind of social circles growing up. And he actually, at Boston College, he actually founded the Center for Christian Jewish Learning at Boston College, even though he was Catholic himself. He actually founded that institution, which is the largest of its kind in the world. And when I was in college, even though I went to a Catholic university, I was one of the few students who had a Jewish roommate by choice. I always came from this kind of culture. And when I was living in New York City during 9/11, for example, Jews were very nervous in New York City after that. And I attended Rosh Hashanah dinner afterwards, which I like to do if I have the opportunity, and with an old friend of mine, Annie Ravitz, who's passed away now from lupus. And very soon after September 11th, I attended that, because with some Jewish friends, because that was important to me. And then I attended Yom Kippur as well after that. They were like big soldiers outside the synagogue with machine guns and things like that. Things were that nervous. But I thought, hey, I'm going to attend this Yom Kippur because out of solidarity, not the whole Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur is a long service, but I attended some of it. But and I attended that with Annie Ravitz and her brother John, who was the state assemblyman for the east side of Manhattan at that time, and we attended Yom Kippur together. And I did that out of, because I thought that was important to do.
We don't need to get too lost in the weeds with this anti-Semitism.
Right. But anyway, these are some of my. I can keep going, but these are some of my Nazi credentials. And now I'm called also a member of the KKK, Latin Mass Catholics from New England. Let me tell you, we are not on the recruiting list for the KKK. So I mean, these kind of childish, delusional aspersions that Tom has been casting on me. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Well, let me ask you this about the Joe Burns Nazi memorabilia type of fellow there, which was common back in, especially when the skinheads first came out in the 70s and stuff, and punk rock scene, with the Nazi regalia. I grew up out of there, Lower East Side, Bowery and Bleecker. Now, what about, because El Duce, right, who also comes out of that culture with that type of punk, are you familiar with the recording of Hank Harrison and El Duce talking about being hired to murder Kurt?
With Hank on it? No, I don't recall that.
No, it's not out there. I have it. No one asked for me. Right. But does anybody talk about that or ask about it or anything?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, I have it. Yeah.
Really?
I got to do something with it, man. Yeah. So
really?
Yeah. Well, let's make a deal. Now, the other thing, too, is I want to ask you, too. Now, you sent me an MP3 in chat on Facebook. I just noticed it just now, so I have not listened to it. Would it be okay for me to play that for my audience in some capacity, maybe in the members section or something like that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. No. And then you also sent me a PDF, too. Now, I don't know who owns that or who created that, but it's a very elaborate PDF.
It's detailed. Yeah, who is the real Tom Grant? Yeah, it's detailed. I did not put it together. I didn't contribute to it.
Do we know who did and what their motivation is?
The truth? Yeah, I know it's a researcher, really smart, nice guy, researcher from Australia named Kieran Hudson, who put that together.
Gotcha. And Kieran Hudson and Erica Blanc. Sorry about that. Yeah. Are those guys that would make good guests to interview them?
Sure. Okay. I don't know. Eric's English is limited.
Yeah, that sucks, man. They got a thick accent. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, man. So there's a lot going on here. So
there's a lot going on. Yeah.
So what do you make of this new group of intense investigators and researchers looking into all this? What's the quality of this work being done?
I don't know. I haven't followed that much of it, and I'll tell you why. I have a lot of fatigue when it comes to this subject. I just get fatigued. People contact me and say, "Have you heard this video? Have you seen this video? Have you watched this thing? Have you seen that news?" And I say, "No, I haven't," because I've hit a threshold, and I just can't watch too much of it. I can't bear it. I've hit my limit with the subject.
No, I hear you, man. There's a lot of things because I've been doing this a long time now, 11 years. Just had my 11-year anniversary this month. And there's so many topics out there that just took on a life of their own, man, with all these crazy personal grudges and stuff. Now, what about, I forgot to mention, too, that in this tape with El Duce and Hank Harrison, there's a lot of talk about David Geffen in that tape.
Oh, yeah.
Does David Geffen come up in any of these other discussions with these people?
The company comes up, David Geffen, in their behaviors, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. And it kind of coincides with some of the scandal going down with, which I haven't followed that much, with like the P. Diddy blackmail scandal and something like that. There seems to be some sort of overlap on that. In other words, there's sort of this dark side to the music industry that is part of this story that needs to be exposed. And Joe Burns is very much aware of this.
Joe Burns, gotcha. Mm-hmm. Now, what about, you know the story, me and John Potash, we were interviewing one day. We were talking to Hank Harrison. It was a fluke. This whole conversation was a fluke. And because I was interviewing Hank, and then Potash happened to message me on Facebook, just a personal, "Hey, Ed, how are you?" kind of message. And I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm interviewing Hank." And Hank's talking away, I'm chatting. As I'm doing my interview, I'm chatting with John. And he says, "Well, ask him about Courtney Love and Stephen Leary," I think it was, and the LSD in Ireland. And then that the Stephen Leary was CIA, but his brother Kevin Leary was higher up in the CIA. Kevin Leary from Shark Tank.
Oh, really?
Oh, you don't know that story?
No, I don't.
I'll send you the clip. It's in the new movie just coming out. It's in the old film, Drugs is Weapons Against. It's the Potash film. But it's also lengthened out a little bit more, added to it in his new film, CIA Drugs Are Us, which is an excellent film. So I got a screener of that too. But you're talking to this woman in Ireland. All that took place in Ireland. Did any of that ever come up?
To which woman in Ireland? I'm sorry.
The ex-police chief of Seattle. Did anything come up about Courtney's trips to Ireland carrying LSD?
No, I'm not. I mean, I did talk to Hank a few times on the phone. We got along well, and he did talk about Ireland quite a bit, but I don't recall anything like that.
Well, I'll tell you something funny, because cause we got him on tape, man. Then he says, and I says, Hank, man, come on. And he says, I have a letter from him talking about this. He confessed to me on his deathbed letter. And then later on, in subsequent conversations, he tries to back away from it. Listen, Hank was one of a kind. Let's put it that way. And rest in peace, Mr. Hank Harrison. There. Oh my goodness, what a soap opera!
It's such a drama, and it gets tiresome. And I got really tired of it a long time ago. Yeah. And Tom he's really cornered right now. He's got his back. He's done it to himself. I don't know what happened in 1994. His story is not adding up. I don't know if he was there that night. He needs to answer these questions, though. And he's not, and people are putting them to him. And he's lashing out at me now for doing this. Now, I didn't think the video of Joe Burns should be released. I thought there needed to be I thought of it as like a first draft video interview, and I thought there should be a subsequent one. And I was hoping Jason Jensen would do it, actually, and to try to have a better interview and more when he was feeling better, and when it just had to be better prepared all around. But sometimes that's how the first go at it is. Yeah.
A quick question. So Joe Burns and his ex-girlfriend, they both told you the same story in the same room or separately? How did those interviews go?
It was separate. And this was Eric Blanc doing it, and he did the interviews with them. He was in charge in the beginning. And I've kept Eric in the loop as much as possible all the time. And because it's his witness that he discovered. And so I respect that. I respect, I don't steal other people's research. And believe me, I've had that done to me. And so, but he did these interviews, and as best I can determine, he did them separately, because Joe and his girlfriend had broken up. But they had his ex-girlfriend, but he did these interviews separately. They weren't in the room together, but they largely aligned. How sure am I? Yeah. I'm mostly sure.
Okay, and now Joe is unwell. He has health problems. But what about the girlfriend? Is she still talking?
No, she's not. She's moved on with her life, and she doesn't do. She doesn't live in the fast lane anymore. She's moved on with her life, and married, had a family, and is happy, and kind of doesn't want to go back is very reluctant to go back to this kind of life and this story. And I frankly understand that.
Yeah, sure. PTA would frown on this. the soccer team, right? But but her testimony, her interview is reduced to video.
Unless only if Eric, I don't have a video of it. I mean, Eric might have one, but I don't. Eric has a lot of material. Yeah. He's done a lot of research, and I haven't even seen it all, but I know he has it. He's done, despite the language barrier and the cultural barrier, he's done pretty well. He's done some good work, and so he knows more about it than I do.
Gotcha. Now, so if people want to follow up on this stuff, do you recommend they follow Eric's Facebook group? I'm in there.
Yeah, you could follow Eric's Facebook group. There's a guy named Dean Summers who has a page called Kurt's Army. That's pretty popular, and he does some pretty edgy stuff. And but again, I don't even follow it that much. Yeah. And I wouldn't have even been calling you today if Tom wasn't, coming up with this crazy accusation that I was going to steal money from a Wild Blue Press deal. I mean, it's just bizarre. It's just the oddest thing I've been accused of a few things in this case, but Wild Blue Press was that was not a money maker at all.
No, I have a lot of dealings with Wild Blue Press on a weekly basis. I interviewed a lot of their authors, and I don't think there's a wealth of. I don't think it's Fort Knox over there. Let's put it that way.
No. I mean, I thought that was obvious. And when that whole thing happened, naively of me, when I got that publishing deal, despite the fact that there was no money on the table, I thought this was naive of me. I thought Tom Grant was going to thank me and apologize because I got a deal, I got a publishing deal, and I could have gotten this book to the Seattle police chief. I thought I was going to get that, and I thought I deserved it, certainly. And I didn't get that at all. Quite the opposite. You're screwing me. This is a bad deal. And when it does make money, you're going to take all the money. I'm like, whatever, man, come on. And, and Tom is destitute. And when you live in very destitute circumstances, you're scraping for every little dime. I get that. But Tom's not a future-oriented guy either. He doesn't I've asked him before if he has do you have term life insurance, whole life insurance? Do you have disability care, disability insurance, 401ks? He can't think about stuff like that. He lives day to day. According to Eric Blanc, he lives in, when I knew him, he lived in a rented room in Lone Pole, California, in a house owned by Indian immigrants. It was really brutal.
Well, in his defense, I'll tell you this. The average private investigator out there that's running an ad like that size in the Yellow Page around that time, that was probably $1,500, a month. And that's not a cheap ad.
Right.
What do you call it? Don't have pensions, or they have a cop pension. They have their cop pension, they're working on that, or they're a PA and they got some other job too that they're doing as well. Or they're plugged in with a couple of really good lawyers and then putting together a lot of cases. Okay, but that's 90, the majority of private investigators either are living off a cop pension or have some other side income, a second job. So that's just how it is, man.
Yeah, right.
I'll be straight with you. All right, we're out of time, Mister. On that note of being broke PIs, Matthew Ricker, we are out of time. Thank you so much. Anything you want to leave us with, in a minute or two?
No. Do you still invite Tom to come on your show, but he declines? Is that true?
No, I haven't reached out. I saw him once on Twitter. I don't even know if I'm probably blocked. I'll check. I got no beef with the guy. I'll talk to him. I'll talk to anybody. I've covered this case from every possible angle. I don't see any problem with talking to Tom Grant. I would love to talk to him.
I would like Tom to just address where he was in April 1994, what really happened, and what he was doing. I just would like him to answer the questions. I think that's fair, and if he can deny them all, then great. But persuasively, that would be great. I'm happy to give him that opportunity to do so. But he hasn't done it yet.
And maybe also we can find out where George H. Bush was on the day John F. Kennedy was shot. Two mysteries that we may never know. Matthew, thank you so much. Hey, thank you for helping me out here at the last second and coming on board at such short notice. I really appreciate that, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good night.
Good night.